Every now and then during the 1980s I used to send Margaret Thatcher a warning note and action program when things were going wrong and government looked a bit shambolic. Old habits die hard, and for several weeks now I have felt a note for Boris Johnson coming on. Now is the time to pull him up with a jerk or he will begin to look like one. This is what I would write to the PM were I still in my old job. Prime Minister, you are now entering what may well be the defining period of your time in number 10. The risk is that your government will go down in history as a mess of contradictions and inconsistency for want of control at the center. Freedom Day has come and gone, though it has felt more like parole under house arrest for thousands who may or may not have COVID but have been pinged by the government's test and trace app. This is doing potentially more damage to the economy than Red Robo ever managed in the days of motor industry anarchy. This is not what the doctor ordered when the urgent priority is to get the economy moving full blast to produce the resources required to pay off debt and finance many much needed social improvements. The lack of central control over our governments is being laid at your door because of your reputed inattention to detail and tendency to busk it. Worse still, you are surrounded by people who are thought to want your job. Chancellor Rishi Sunak, Health Secretary Sajid Javid and Michael Gove in Cabinet Office. You have no substantial wise old owl like Lord Whitelaw who does not want your job to clear up behind you. Margaret Thatcher never spoke a truer word when she said, "Every PM needs a willy," and control and consistency were her trademarks. At the same time we hear of further plans for the Americanization of Britain's parliamentary system with the formation of a much enlarged Prime Minister's office controlling the Treasury. Don't they know that the dispersal of power among cabinet ministers is fundamental to our system? More important at this juncture is the undeniable fact that the last thing government needs is a further shake-up after the efforts of your resident oddball, Dominic Cummings, to fight the system. We need a period of healing and cooperation. I would also argue strongly that the last thing the country needs is the Treasury under your thumb. With a budget deficit of £300 billion and a soaring national debt of over £2 trillion, $1,000 billion, we need a strong counterweight to the tendency for ministers to spend. And that is before we even get into your own reputation for a relaxed approach to money. The first thing you need to do is to recover political control over the pandemic. It is not as though the scientists have distinguished themselves with their advice. With a good third of the population double jabbed, 2/3 inoculated and relatively low hospital admission and death rates, this is surely the time, given the seriousness of our national finances, to get Britain moving again and learning to live with COVID as we have learned to cope with flu. You cannot level up Britain on thin air. Second, tests and trace is producing such a shambles of contradictions, inconsistencies and unnecessary expense that the government will become a laughing stock unless the whole thing is tidied up. If ever a government needed a policy doctor to make sure that its measures add up, this is it. Does anybody vet measures for their consistency, anomalies and likely effect these days? Third, your reputation for loving big projects, however expensive, and talking big is all very well, but again it is the last thing you need in present circumstances. You are going to have to harden your heart or your legacy will be a mass of debts that hang over Britain for generations. Fourth, your government is rich on promises but relatively poor on action. I need mention only immigration and care of the elderly. You have got to stop promising the earth and start, the sooner the better, delivering goods. Otherwise, voters will stop listening. My guess is that you still have majority support in the country after Brexit, an election victory and the vaccination program. But their goodwill is a wasting asset, though the Amersham and Batley by-election results offer no clear guide. Nonetheless, you urgently need to demonstrate to his boss and your determination to turn things around. Just as Nelson signalled England expects, you need to signal from your COVID isolation at Cheekers that Boris has turned over a new leaf and expects his government to deliver on defined priorities. In short, it is a question of application, control and iron will. Strong prime ministers never have any real difficulty getting things done. It's the weak and wishy-washy who flounder. You must not flounder, given the abysmal state of the opposition.